The next stimulus that we get, there's going to be stimulus, as you pointed out. What do you want to see?
Well, we hope there's going to be stimulus.
President Trump wants there to be stimulus. He's said $2 trillion plus. Whether Republicans in the Senate will go there, but what should it look like? We're in New York City right now, and you've talked about this. The restaurants, it's 50 to 60% of restaurants here are going to go out of business, and that's not unique to New York. That's San Francisco, Chicago, major cities, small cities across the country. What do you want to see in the next stimulus?
So the first thing I care about is jobs. And really, when you talk about jobs, you're talking about small businesses. As we know, unfortunately, the way the last economic shutdown worked is that the large businesses were all able to stay open, and they were deemed essential, and they were able to keep their employees. And so when you're talking about jobs, you're talking about small businesses in America. You're talking about the restaurants. You're talking about the dry cleaners. You're talking about the hair salons. You're talking about the bakeries. You're talking about the delis. You're talking about all the businesses that you see on Main Street America all over. So the first place I think we have to go is we have to go into the small businesses, and we have to go into job creation. It's some combination of PPP. It's some type of economic stimulus for small and medium-sized businesses. And for those that can't even stay in small and medium-sized businesses, we're going to have to help with unemployment benefits in this country.
When you talk about job creation, how do you put people to work in an industry that, for instance, restaurants are only allowed to have 25% capacity? Or even, we had on Ed Bastian from Delta Airlines. Yeah. He's cut his workforce, he's had to, and it's a lot of early retirements from 90,000 there down to 74,000. How do you do job creation in that kind of environment?
So I think we all recognize that the travel, leisure, hospitality industries, entertainment industry, they're the industries that are really suffering. They're all based on travel, they're all based on densification, they're on people meeting, people being together. That is the toughest industry to come back. And I think it's going to be a long, slow slog to get back.
Should we give these people universal basic income? I mean, if it's going to be that long a period?
So it's going to be a long period of income. What I think is we have to start thinking outside the box. We know we're going to be a long recovery period for this. So we've been talking about things like infrastructure in this country for a long time. Why don't we take a big chunk of this federal stimulus money and really turn it into something that we desperately need in this country? We not only need to modernize our existing infrastructure, we need to think about what a real, true infrastructure for the next century looks like.
How does that help, though? I hear what you're saying, but how does that help a waiter or somebody who's worked in those kinds of service industries?
We're going to take them and we're going to give them new job opportunities in a new industry, in a new place where they can get a new job. And we're going to move people from the waiter industry or from the restaurant industry or from being a chef or from being in a hair industry into a new industry. We're going to move enough people out where there'll be less competition in those areas, where you'll start migrating people into different industries. So we'll move people into new opportunities. So if you think of a country like the United States that still does not have a modernized air traffic control system, right? We're still a land-based air traffic control system, which seems a little bit out of date. We're one of the few major countries in the world that doesn't have a GPS-based system. I think we're one of the few major countries in the world that doesn't have high-speed rail system. Why wouldn't we take some of this major fiscal stimulus and start building it? Those are tens of millions of jobs, high-paying jobs.
How much are you talking? $1 trillion? They were talking about $1 trillion when you were in Washington, and it never materialized.
We were definitely talking about $1 trillion. If you're talking about these big fiscal stimulus plans, instead of just giving people money, which I'm supportive of right now, why don't we give people money and employ them in something that's going to make the country more efficient and more competitive for the next century?
When you say give people money, are you saying universal basic income, or are you saying through the
I'm saying unemployment benefits. We've got to allow people to live, to get through this crisis. So what I'm saying is I acknowledge that right now, as the economies are shutting down, economies are slowing down, restaurants are going to be less busy since we're dining outside and it's cold and wet in a large part of the country.
Retail stores as well.
And a large part of the country is getting colder and colder, and it's tough to eat outside. Restaurants are going to have to lay off people. Airlines are going to have to lay off people. Let's take the stimulus money and let's spend it in a way where we can employ people. People get up and go to work in a way that's socially distanced, it's safe, but we can build a better infrastructure in this country.